Contact us to avail the combo offer of General Studies and Public Administration optional with 20% discount.
Good morning everyone. Yes, good morning everyone. Today we are going to have the Hindu analysis of 24th September 2021. Okay, so I guess all of you are having newspaper copy with you. So first of all, let us take overview of all these articles. You can mark them in your newspaper also, and later on you can also refer to them. So first of all, we will take overview of all these articles, wherein we will understand the context of these articles and their relevance to our syllabus points. So first of all, mains related developments. So there is one editorial on page number 6. Simultaneously you look at these articles. Okay, so it will give you some idea what article title is there and what it is talking about, and you can just write down there it is relevant to GS2 paper IR section, like that, and then you can give attention to the class here. Okay, so it is talking about analyzing AUKUS grouping, the security alliance which was recently formed, from India's perspective or India's interest, how it is affecting India's interest. Okay, so this is relevant to GS2 paper. Already we discussed AUKUS grouping, so again some new inputs we have to take here. Okay, regarding this AUKUS alliance. So Australia, UK, US nuclear submarine technology transfer alliance is formed here. Okay, then e-governance and smart cities. There is one article on page number 7 on the bottom side. It talks about the basics of e-governance and how urban local self-government can implement e-governance to build a smart city. Okay, so both are relevant to GS2 paper governance part. Okay, so yes, e-governance is also there in ethics paper. Are you aware about this? Ethics in governance part, the last part of the syllabus, e-governance is also there. So basics of e-governance you should be aware about, and how it is relevant to building a smart city. So such kind of question, it can be there in GS2 paper governance, it can be used in GS4 paper also. Then a climate change narrative that India can steer. So yes, there will be many such articles as a, let's say, prelude to this COP26 that is going to happen in November month at Glasgow, UK, right? So yes, same aspect is discussed here, same context is there, that how India can further improve its nationally determined contribution and aspire for higher targets in terms of contributions to Paris Agreement. This is what article is talking. Some important data is also mentioned relevant to the impact of this climate change and global warming that is happening in India. Okay, impact in India is being discussed here. So you can use that in GS3 paper environment section, or any such essay topic that is there related to environment or global warming or climate change. Then jabs to be given at home for disabled. So it is talking about vaccination of Divyang people, okay, or differently abled people. So this is good thing. Social justice, the state or the government is having responsibility to protect those who are vulnerable. This is aspect of social justice, right? So Divyang people are vulnerable. They are not having access to the vaccination at vaccination camps. They cannot go outside. Okay, so because of that, so government has come up with this proposal, and now Ministry of Health has said that they will be vaccinated at home. This is good thing. Okay, now specifically for prelims examination, Supreme Court introduces faster system so as to communicate its order or related to bails, or let's say any order of stay of execution of anything. So it is talking about judicial reforms. GS2 paper mains examination also, as well as for prelims examination, what is this faster system? Okay, so we will understand that from polity and governance aspect. Then charm dance. So let me tell you that there are two important supplements to the Hindu newspaper. On Friday there is Friday review, and on Sunday there is magazine supplement, right? On Friday review talks about review of books or any different plays or stage performances or even movies, documentaries. So there is one such documentary made by a noted person on this charm dance, that is traditional, we can say the monastic dance of lamas in Ladakh region. So art and culture, okay, so folk dance, traditional dance having religious context, so they are relevant to prelims examination. So basics about this charm dance on page number 4 of Friday review page, it is given, right? So we will try to understand that from prelims examination. And finally, practice prelims MCQs on daily current affairs. So first article, another grouping. Title of that article on page number 6, editorial page, it is talking about the new alliance AUKUS Australia, UK, US recently announced just before the in-person meeting of Quad grouping. Okay, and that's why the concerns are being raised whether Quad grouping is being converted into the security alliance within the grouping, or the Quad grouping itself is kept aside and the new grouping is being formed within the Quad grouping. And because of that, whether the significance of Quad grouping is going to reduce. Okay, so these are the concerns. We will understand them, but first of all, what is this AUKUS grouping? Australia, UK and US alliance. Okay, this is the security alliance, especially we will call it as a security alliance. Why? Because it is specifically for transfer of nuclear submarine technology from UK and US to Australia. Fine, this much information is sufficient. Now we should understand what is the India's response on AUKUS. In first part of that article, it is talking about India's response. So recently our foreign secretary has given a statement regarding this security alliance. So that is India's official stand, official response. You should be aware about official response. Okay, so what is India's official response to AUKUS? It is saying that first thing, it does not want to link this grouping to India's interest. First thing, we do not want to link it to India's interest. Second thing is that it has clarified that it is different from Quad grouping. Yesterday itself or day before yesterday we talked about this. Quad is not security alliance, rather this AUKUS is security alliance. Okay, Quad is much more, let's say, broader platform to discuss other political, climate change related, technology cooperation related, economic cooperation, vaccine alliance that was recently formed. Okay, so it is broader platform we can say, but the scope of AUKUS is limited to only security aspect. And third aspect is that we have clarified that it is not leading to nuclear proliferation. So we have specifically or categorically said that it is not nuclear proliferation. Okay, so this is a good thing. We have clarified all these aspects. Now let us understand that what are the promising possibilities of this new alliance. Positive aspects of this new alliance. In, let's say, previous discussion we talked about how it will act as a game changer in change in the power balance in Indo-Pacific region, right? So it will act as a deterrence towards China, right? So nuclear submarine capabilities for Australia means its submarines will be able to have the longer distances, they can travel to longer distances, and because of that its area of influence will increase, right? Now let us understand the other possibilities. Here rather we can say that it will strengthen Quad grouping. How it will strengthen Quad grouping? especially in terms of naval capabilities. Already Quad countries are having some kind of naval alliance, but not specifically naval alliance, rather we have maritime exercises in terms of Malabar exercise, right? And there we try to have some kind of, let's say, communication, cooperation or interoperability between the navies of these countries. And when they will acquire this new technology, automatically it will help other countries also to strengthen its navy. Okay, at the same time it will promote the different technological cooperation in other areas also. So we can expect that. So we can expect that it will strengthen Quad. Then we can also talk about that US is back to lead the world. It is a signal. You know what happened in last 4 years during previous presidentialship of US. What happened at that time? Are you aware about that? US was withdrawing from the world affairs, right? US was withdrawing from Paris deal. US was withdrawing from UNESCO. US was withdrawing from WHO. So basically there was protectionism approach, right? And now such kind of initiatives under new presidentialship suggest that US has come forward to lead the world again. So this is good thing, right? US being the democratic country, it has some good credentials also. We will not say that it is perfect country, but better than China. We will surely say that it is better than China, right? So this is good thing. And then we can also say that excuse me, yes, so US is also considering Indo-Pacific at par with transatlantic cooperation. Can you agree with this? Already US has a very good transatlantic cooperation like European countries and US, Canada. Transatlantic, I'm saying that. Now what is Indo-Pacific? Indo-Pacific means here in Indian Ocean and Pacific Ocean region. So US is giving importance to this region also simultaneously along with its transatlantic. So that is also good thing. This is in India's interest also. At the same time, US is willing to cooperate with democratic countries in Indo-Pacific region or democratic allies. Which are democratic allies? Remember important democratic allies: Australia, Japan, India. Okay, so these three, and South Korea also will say. Okay, so these are important democratic allies in Indo-Pacific region. So it wants to cooperate with these allies in Indo-Pacific region. So this is positive outcome. And what are the concerns, however? The concern is, the major concern is that the US, or we can say that it is specifically announced before Quad meeting. So why it was announced before Quad meeting? Unnecessarily it has raised the concern in the minds of India's leadership, right? So the major concern is this one. So surely our external affairs ministry representatives will be in contact with these countries, and they must be thinking about why it was announced before Quad meeting itself. This is the major concern, and that suggests that whether Quad is being secondary or given the secondary importance, whether Quad is being given secondary importance, you need to understand that from time to time India has pressurized US and other countries in the Quad to not announce it as the security alliance. Try to understand, India is the only country in the Quad which is in direct touch, or they'll say geographical border with China. So announcing Quad as a security grouping means instigating China. So India has been continuously insisting that it is not security alliance. and to some extent it affects US interest also. US wants to create some kind of deterrence against China, right? So that's why US may be thinking over other alliances here to create such kind of deterrence, right? So these are actually the concerns we have to understand. And when we talk about specific concerns for India, specific concern for India suggests that already, let's say, US has created some kind of tensions in India's west. We are seeing or witnessing what is happening in Afghanistan. This is to some extent created by US in last 20 years. And now it is trying to create tensions in Indo-Pacific also. Don't you think transfer of such technology to Australia will instigate China? China is already furious about this, right? So to some extent it is going to increase the instability in the region, the power struggle, instability in the region. And this is harmful for India's interest. We want to promote peace and stability in South China Sea and Indo-Pacific, and to some extent US intervening in the region rather than promoting peace through dialogue. There is some kind of, let's say, security alliances and threat to peace in the region. India's interest in this way specifically are affected. Fine. Is this clear? Okay, so what kind of question? The formation of new alliance occurs significantly affects India's interest in Indo-Pacific region. Comment. So you should be aware how it affects, and to some extent not directly but indirectly. It is not affecting directly India's interest, but indirectly in Indo-Pacific region, it may create some kind of power struggle, tensions, and we can say lack of stability in Indo-Pacific region, South China Sea, and because of that, it will affect India's interest. Fine? Okay. Any question? Yes, okay, moving on. Make department smart first. On page number 7, there is one article talking about e-governance, basics of e-governance, and how urban local self-governments can build a smart city with the help of e-governance. Now we all know that e-governance is a process. You know, first of all, understanding e-governance, we need to understand what is government and governance. Okay, I simply say that whenever we talk about government, it is basically related to the representatives of people who are, let's say, given some authority, powers to rule, or we can say govern, right? So they have some kind of constitutional powers and all these things are there, and they have powers to raise the resources so as to govern, right? Now this government is, we can say, limited sphere, and surrounding it is the people, or we will say that those who are governed, right? So there is some kind of interaction going on continuously between government and those who are governed. That interaction is called as governance. That interaction is called as governance. It is, we can say that it is not limited to the government building or internal process of the government. Rather, it is interaction with those who are governed. It can be people, it can be private sector, or we can say that it can be civil society organizations. So in this manner we should understand the governance process. Different stakeholders interacting with the government. So that's why we call it as G2B, government to business, government to government, government to citizen, G2C. These are actually different channels of this governance. Now when we talk about e-governance, this interaction when takes place through electronic media, then we call it as e-governance. Simply we are saying that this happens in a digital format or digital communication. when the government is communicating, interacting with the different stakeholders in the society on the electronic platforms, that will be called as e-governance. Okay, now we all know that e-governance promotes transparency, and that helps to make the government accountable. It improves the trust of the people in the government, right? So all these aspects are good thing. It improves the satisfaction of the people in terms of receiving government services. All these aspects are benefits of e-governance, right? So in detail, yes, surely in polity paper Ansari sir is going to deal with that, in GS2 paper, right, foundation batch students. So that is fine, but here the article is having different context. What is that context? It is saying that the smart city is network of smart functions and developments. Now there are two words used specifically here: smart functions and smart departments. That's why it is saying that make department smart first. Okay, so smart functions and smart departments. Let us understand first of all. Suppose I am working in a government department, let's say urban local government, municipality department, and suppose I am not able to work on the computer. I do not understand how to operate a digital system. Then whether it is going to be helpful here to convert into that smart city? That department is not smart itself. That means the personnel who are manning that department, they are not smart. Okay, that means they are not digitally educated or digitally we can say trained, right? So first of all, we should understand that to make these urban local sub government smart, or we can say department smart, we need to focus on two important aspects: processes and human resource. And then overall third aspect is important to make a complete smart city, that is citizen centricity. Let us understand what do you mean by processes here. How to make a department smart through changing processes. First of all, we all know that how the government department works. When you visit the government department, they will give in this writing, give application in writing. Okay, so whenever let's say they want to find any land record, they will say that come after 2 days, we have to search that in a different file. That file is in different office, right? So this is what? Written records. The government focuses on written records, right? We need to change this process. We need to have digital records. We need to have digital records. But now with the, let's say, initiation of this e-governance process, what is happening? The people are there, or these functionaries are there, in front of them computers are there. What they are doing? They are simply entering the data from this, whatever the written records are there. But this may result into the manual errors. This may result into manual errors. The people are not trained. They are not trained. They are not given some education in how to utilize this in a smart manner. Right? So because of that, there can be manual error. So process needs to change, and for that purpose, we need to bring the behavioral change. There should not be reluctance on the part of functionaries to use these systems. And this will change when we have some kind of system of reward and incentives. Suppose I am going to be IAS officer, or tomorrow you are going to be IAS officer. How will you promote or motivate those employees to use computers or whatever the e-governance system that you have initiated? You will try to explain them the benefits of this system. You will try to incentivize using that system, right? So in this manner, there will be behavioral change among them, and then automatically the processes will change. So for that purpose, what we need? System of reward and incentives, along with that education and training modules. And this will bring changes in the process and human resource. But third important aspect, this is not going to make the city smart, because this is limited to government itself, within the boundary of government department. Governance is interaction with people. Suppose I am the citizen and I am going to the government department to receive any kind of service, and suppose the government is smart, department is smart, but whatever the service it is providing, I am not satisfied. I am not satisfied. Suppose it is providing some information and that information is inadequate information, then I am not satisfied. So that means the focus of this should be citizen centered. What people want, what people are demanding. So accordingly, the processes and human resource should change. So basically it is talking about internal reforms have to reflect in better experience and empowerment of citizens. Okay, so citizen while receiving these services, they should feel satisfied, they should feel empowered rather than disempowered. Okay, so in this manner there will be building of smart city then. Automatically there will be some kind of we can say, when all these are followed, what will happen is there will be a cycle created and new data will be automatically acting as an input for further changes in the departments, right? So in this manner a smart city is built, a new concept is there. Okay, so this good thing we can expect such kind of question. Specifically isolated questions now UPSC has stopped. Okay, it is asking you to go ahead and link these syllabus points with different aspect. You can link this e-governance to a smart city, right? So yes, what kind of question? Yes, what is e-governance? Basics about that. How urban local bodies can utilize e-governance to build a smart city. Right, so in this manner there can be simple straightforward question here, right? So moving on, a climate change narrative that India can steer. So yes, this question talks about, or this article talks about regarding the COP26 that is going to happen at Glasgow, UK later this year. And yes, surely it is talking about, it is that the new opportunity presented before India to further improve its nationally determined contributions. But before that, in the first part, it is talking about how climate change impacts we can say that in India. So yes, important data about climate change and its impact on India. This data you need to take input from newspaper, you have to use in your answers. For example, so Ministry of Earth Sciences in one of the report says that in India there is already temperature rise of 0.7 degrees Celsius. Okay, in India already temperature rise of 0.7 degrees Celsius, and by the end of century, by the end of this century, it may rise to 4.4 degrees Celsius. Can you imagine this? 4.4 degrees Celsius. So in winter there will be summer, or we will feel like summer, and in summer we are not, let's say, able to cope up with this kind of situation. Now in addition to that, we should also understand that 2 of 10 most expensive natural disasters happened in India in last 2 years. Which are this? Last year cyclone Amphan was there, super cyclone Amphan. It has resulted into a lot of let's say economic destruction of property, right? Along with that, last year we have witnessed excess rainfall during the monsoon time period, and because of that many regions of India, including many cities like Pune, Hyderabad, witnessed urban floods that resulted into huge economic loss, right? The second important aspect, during the, let's say, start of this year, we have witnessed 2 again cyclones, like cyclone Yas was there cyclone Tauktae, cyclone Yas was there, and it has also resulted into economic loss. So in this manner, we all know that because of global warming and climate change, frequency of extreme weather events like tropical cyclone, heat waves, this is going to increase. And India is not at all, we can say, adopted to such kind of events. So heat waves, so we all know that poor people are not having incentives, enough income or money available with them to afford ACs or not even coolers. And yes, surely they will be impacted more here, especially the aged people or those having comorbidities. The impact on their health is severe here. At the same time, we should understand that India's internally displaced population are rising due to damaging climate events. Here also you should understand the data. First thing, some of the people in Uttarakhand after Kedarnath floods, when did it happen? Kedarnath floods? Are you aware about this? Famous Kedarnath floods. There was movie also, right? 2013. So after that, many people living in nearby hilly areas, they left their homes because of frequent such flash floods happening in that region. If we are talking about coastal areas of India, in last, let's say 2008 to 2018, around 3.7 million people left their homes because of frequent coastal flooding, and we can say that frequency of cyclones, right? So there is one figure I'm not remembering about it, especially talking about cyclone Amphan. It has resulted to huge displacement of people. So we will call it as internally displaced population. Use this word in your answers. Internally displaced population. Okay, because of climate, they can be also called as climate migrants. And if they are, let's say, moving from one country to other country, they will be called as climate refugees. Use these terms in your answer. Okay. Now, after understanding this, we all know that India has ambitious targets in terms of its NDCs. In terms of, let's say, its national policies. For example, we have ambitious target for renewable energy. What is that target? Earlier it was 175 gigawatt by 2022, and now it has been further revised to 450 gigawatt by 2030. Ambitious target. Then we can talk about NDCs, nationally determined contributions that we have submitted. Like 40% of India's energy basket will come from renewable energy. Or we are going to reduce our carbon intensity of our GDP by 33 to 35% by 2030. So such are ambitious targets, and good policies are also there. Like National Solar Mission is there, Kusum scheme is there for harnessing solar energy. We are having ultra mega solar power plants being established in different parts of the country. We are trying to reduce the import subsidy on those, let's say, materials or the, what you can say, components that are used in the solar energy or renewable energy equipments. So good policies are there, but weak practices, that means implementation is not up to mark. Implementation is not up to mark, especially regarding third NDC. What is third NDC? We talked about two commitments, but we are also having one commitment regarding creation of carbon sink in terms of afforestation. We are going to increase our forest reserves and improve carbon sink. We know carbon sink, the area where the atmospheric carbon dioxide naturally gets absorbed, like the oceans, forest, even soil. Okay, so they are natural carbon sinks. So we are going to increase the carbon sink, but that is not up to the mark. This target we are not achieving at present. We all know that afforestation is at tardy place, rather there is deforestation, we will say, and the quality of present forest is already being degraded. Okay, so practices, that means we want to achieve that, but in practice we are doing deforestation, right, or reducing the quality of this forest through government policies. So in this manner we should understand that the implementation in terms of regulation also, let's say pollution norms, implementation of pollution norms are there. So CPCB and SPCBs, Central Pollution Control Board, they are not being effectively implementing the pollution norms. In this manner we should understand the weak practices. Now, Glasgow COP, Conference of Parties 26, offers India a great opportunity to lead the world by revising its NDCs to meet targets under Paris deal. So that is good thing. Yes, surely India can set the example in the world. Despite of very low per capita carbon emissions, we are contributing towards climate action. Despite of, we can say, the energy demands that we have towards increasing population growth that we have in India, we are trying to reduce the carbon emissions, and this will act as a moral pressure on the Western countries and those polluting countries like US is there, China is there, European Union is there. Together they are the leading emission countries, we can say that, and India is fourth. Okay, so China, US, EU, European Union, and then India. But when we remove European Union as it is grouping, then we can say that India is third. But when we talk about the contribution, the overall contribution of greenhouse gases by India is only 5%. Okay, and per capita carbon emissions are 1/3 of global average. So this is what we have to understand here, and that's why India is not providing deadline or any target of net zero emissions. Okay, so in this manner we will try to take input here. Yes, next, jabs to be given at home for disabled. So we are talking about social justice aspect, that government or the state is having some moral responsibility under the social contract, or we call it as the Indian Constitution, so as to look for or protecting the vulnerable population of the society, and Divyang people are those part of vulnerable sections and they are not having access to the vaccines. So government is now going to vaccinate these Divyang people at their homes itself, right? So this is a good decision taken by the government, we will say. Then yes, Supreme Court introduces faster system to send records. Now this is part of judicial reforms. Okay, judicial reforms are not always related to, let's say, some judgments or something, appointments and all. Rather, administrative reforms are also part of judicial reforms. And this is part of administrative reforms. Like for example, up till now what used to happen is, suppose the judiciary or let's say the district magistrate is giving the bail to any person, then that person or the relatives of that person are supposed to carry that bail document in a physical printed format to the jail authorities, and then the jail authorities will relieve that person. So this was delaying and this was affecting the human rights of the people, their liberty here. Okay, under trial people, so they are given bail, right, by the judges in different courts, their capacities, and because of, let's say, delay in the communication or whatever the process, you know, recently our CJI has said that in the times of emails and social media or direct communication, the judiciary is, or this system is resorting to the pigeons of ancient times to deliver the message. In ancient times, pigeons were used, right? So this is how the comment was done in recent times, and immediately such reforms were undertaken. Under this system, remember the full form for prelims examination: fast and secure transmission of electronic records. Faster system. Okay. Now this, under this system, let's say the crucial decisions including orders on bail, stay of arrest, can be communicated electronically to the prison authorities and investigation agencies through a secure channel. This is good thing, right? This was long pending reform in the judicial reforms, we can say that. Now what is the significance? It is meant to ensure that under trials are not made to wait for days to end behind the bars to be released because the certified hard copies of their bail orders took time to reach the prison. There was recent case actually in Agra around, let's say, some of the under trials, they have been in jail for last 20 years. Okay, and when the bail was given to these under trials, and this written order reached after 3-4 days. Okay, even after giving the bail, after, let's say, falsely implicated and remaining in prison for last 20 years, their release was delayed for 3-4 days again. Because of this is actually not justice. Okay, so this is the problem here. It will also prevent unnecessary arrest and custody of people even after the court had already granted them its protection. Okay, so unnecessary arrest, already prisons are overflooded by the under trials. What is the need of arrest and keeping them in prisons? So this is good thing. Now, dance of lamas. Okay, on page number 4 of Friday Review magazine page is there, and there this article is talking about charm dance. Okay, so this is traditional dance form of Ladakh region and Spiti Valley of Himachal Pradesh. Traditionally it was, let's say, practiced in different parts of world also, like Tibetan region of China, even Mongolia, but now it is kept alive only in Ladakh region by these lamas. Lamas are priests in Buddhist religion, right? So how it came into being. So Yogacara school of Buddhism was founded in Kashmir in the 4th century. This is also important, okay, for prelims examination, by Asanga and Vasubandhu, these two people. Then this developed into sophisticated Vajrayana form of Buddhism, which incorporated charm dance. Remember this, there are different forms of Buddhism. UPSC is very keen to ask questions on forms of Buddhism in prelims examination. Already it has asked the Theravada Buddhism form and Mahayana, Hinayana, and you need to be aware about Vajrayana. There is some kind of magic and tantric belief in Vajrayana. It is largely spread in eastern parts of India. Okay, significantly. But in Tibetan Buddhism form, sophisticated form we are talking here. A less intense form of Vajrayana is developed here, and this has, let's say, incorporated charm dance in that, let's say, religious practices. Let us understand what does it mean. From Ladakh till Mongolia, the charm is the deepest form of meditation for lamas. It is not actually a form of entertainment. Generally, when we talk about dance, it is form of entertainment, or let's say some kind of joy, enjoyment by the community together. But it is basically a form of meditation. It is a form, they celebrate the victory of, we can say, the good over evil, with 2 days of monastic dance annually performed in those monasteries. Okay, so there is story given in that article. That story is not important. Okay, but let us understand, it is celebrated as victory of good over evil. And here evil is not external evil. Evil within. Buddhism always talks about reforming self and achieving enlightenment. So from that aspect, it wants to remove evil from within and achieve enlightenment. For that purpose, that's why we are saying that it is meditation for lamas. Okay, so yes, the costumes and masks are integral part of dance. You can see here costumes and masks are there in that photo. Okay, and at the same time music is also there, and all sounds in charm are sacred mantras. Okay, so that is sacred mantras and not just kind of entertainment. And once popularly practiced in Ladakh, Lahul, Spiti, Kinnor, Tibet and southern China and Mongolia, today it is kept alive as a traditional practice only in certain areas of Ladakh and Spiti Valley. Okay, so this is important for prelims examination. So on the basis of this information, what could be answer to this MCQ? Try to attempt it. Okay. Yes?
Yes, sir.
Yes. What should be answer? Correct statements about charm dance. Let us quickly try to solve this. Traditional monastic dance form of lamas in Ladakh region. This is correct statement, right? Then costumes and masks are integral part of dance. Yes, this is also correct statement. Now, Theravada form of Buddhism practiced in Tibet is incorporated in charm dance or has incorporated. Is it Theravada? No, it is incorrect. It is Vajrayana. Theravada form of Buddhism is present in, or it is very strict form of Buddhism. Do you know about this? The teachings of Buddha are strictly followed here. Like for example, it is followed in Sri Lanka. Then we can say Myanmar, Thailand. So southeastern countries and what you can say Sri Lanka, the southern part of India or eastern part of India, southeast part of India, there this Theravada form of Buddhism spread, and somehow let's say a leaner form of Buddhism, Mahayana, spread to the north of India. So be it China or South Korea, Japan, so leaner form of, let's say, Buddhism, not exactly following the teachings of Buddha, rather there can be worship of image of Buddha or statue of Buddha. This is not teaching of Buddha. Do you know about this? Basically after some time of period, the followers split and a different kind of, let's say, practices are followed there. So you should be aware about different forms of Buddhism. Fine. So answer should be here 1 and 2 only is the correct. Fine. Any question regarding this? Any doubt?
Sir, related to Australia, USA, UK relation of variation nuclear agreement is deliberately to spoil the Asian countries' atmosphere.
This is, let's say, one of the threat we can say. One of the threat, one of the concern.
Sir, recently USA has been spoiled Western India region and ready to spoil the Eastern India region. Already they are going to be exiting the some of countries like China. They are going to be deliberately exiting to India.
Yes, this is actually the concern that India is having. The threat to peace and stability in Indo-Pacific region, South China Sea. So that is the concern for India. Okay, so already we are witnessing the problems in western parts like Afghanistan. So in future we can expect such kind of things unless and until India plays some kind of assertive role to ensure peace and stability there. We have to play because we are soft power. There will be some kind of pressure to ensure peace and stability and reduce any kind of arms race or such kind of security alliances threatening peace and stability in region. Okay? Fine? Okay, then let us stop. We will meet tomorrow at the same time. Thank you.
Contact us to avail the combo offer of General Studies and Public Administration optional with 20% discount.